Day 237 of the Ukrainian resistance. This is Ukraine Mediacentru with you. We start another briefing. We will be talking to Serhiy Karpenko, director of the Union of Poultry Breeders of Ukraine. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We'll start with the most important thing, eggs. Well, the Ukrainians are asking about such high prices. Is it going to stay? And what about any other changes related to the price for this product, which is very important? Well, the price which we have right now, of course, it was shaped on the basis of 3 or 4 key factors. If you're attentive consumers, then you can always see that the egg prices they go up in autumn and winter. What is the reason for that? Well, the reason is that 50% of eggs are being produced in farms. And when it's getting warmer, when we have a spring season or a summer season, then a hen can lay more eggs, there is more demand, and people do not buy as many factory eggs. Then, when it's getting colder, we know that we have fewer eggs from domestic hens, and that is why we buy more from factories. What is happening right now has some roots back in the past 2 years ago. We lost 30% of industrial production. Some 30 enterprises were closed over the past years, and this could be explained by the lack of profitability and low purchasing power. We had overproduction also. The situation that we have faced right now is caused by the seasonality, also cost of eggs as such, and also we understand that very many factories they remain in the occupied territories, and they were in different areas where hostilities were waged. They are not working today. That is why we understand that we have a lower rate of industrial production of eggs, and it amounts to 20%. All those factors affected the situation on the shelves of stores. If you remember, in the beginning of the war, we had a season, the Easter season, the demand is very high, and egg prices were 6, 8 hryvnias from egg factories, and it is 3 times lower than the cost of production. And because these factories couldn't make money, they didn't have enough hands. We have lost not only the factories in the occupied territories, we've also lost production in those factories which are in the territories not affected by the fighting. All of these factors they contributed to the current situation. We have an increased demand, and we do not have a great supply actually when we talk about eggs. Well, however, this month we expect to have increased supply from the industry because we will have better production capacity, and factories they have started to increase the numbers of hens. That is why in October we will have a stabilization of prices for eggs, and we expect that in November there will be lower prices for eggs. What do you think? What is a fair price, a market price for eggs, and what is the price to be expected in November? Well, if you talk about fair pricing, this is something which is determined by the market. Well, that is why I asked about the market price. Well, yes, this is the market which determines this price. It depends on our supply and demand. This is something which shapes the price. Ukrainian poultry was oriented towards export to this or that extent, but it has always been that way. What is the situation currently? Have we lost some markets? Do we continue exporting or we have stopped exporting? What is the situation like? We continue exporting eggs. It is 8% from the general production. We mostly talk about the EU, Singapore, Israel as compared to the previous year. We have 60% less of exporting capacity, so we export minimum to just maintain those relations and contracts which we concluded in the beginning of the year. Of course, if we stop export, it will impact cash flows in the country. We will also lose the markets which we've been working on for very many years to be present in these markets. That is why to have at least some export for us, that is very important. What about forecasts on the prices for chicken meat? Because it does not really depend on the season, I guess. Well, the situation more or less stable in this respect. I think that we are moving closer to the indicators of the previous year as far as pricing is concerned. For the second month, you can see that the situation is quite stable. I do not think that there will be any significant changes by the end of the year. A lot depends on the price for crops, for oils, because we know that it plays a significant role when we talk about feeding. That is why if prices go up, when we talk about oil crops, some other crops, that also means that prices will increase, and this is what producers will be forced to do. But there will be no significant change. This is what we do not see. What about investment and recovery of the volumes which we have lost in the occupied or destroyed territories in some other parts of Ukraine? Here I'm talking about relocation or opening of some other capacities. What do you think? Is there any potential here? Well, of course, those enterprises which we have lost, it would be really great for us to get them back. There are some enterprises which today have been deoccupied, and of course, they require governmental supports in order to be renovated, to renovate everything what was destroyed there, for them to be able to start from scratch. Also, we have some enterprises which have already relocated. They moved to some regions in which we do not have any hostilities. And the pricing situation which we have in the market, it will support the desire of producers to recover their production and also to increase it. As far as those who lost their factories are concerned, if you talk about those households affected by the occupation or hostilities, they will try to rent, to lease some capacities in western parts. The situation in the market, when we talk about eggs, allows us to allows people to believe in this business and to restore it. This is the interest of both the country and the producers. We talk about new jobs. We can also talk about food safety. It is a stable pricing situation in a poultry market. You mentioned that poultry is not something which is separate. It heavily depends on some other agricultural fields. And we understand that we will also have some kind of a situation with crops, so maybe we'll won't have as many of them. Then animal husbandry again. We understand, but because we understand that we also have some other kinds of meat competing with chicken meat. So if you talk about the next year and spring, can Ukrainians be sure that there will be sufficient supplies of chicken meat? Well, we have sufficient supplies now. We produce twice more than we consume. The same is true about eggs. I believe that the situation which we are observing right now will actually help us to have enough products of our own, eggs or meat. That is why I would like to say that 1 month or two of such high prices, and after that the prices will go down because there will be a saturation in the internal market and it will contribute to this. And we will also have more hands in households. It will also start bringing produce starting with November, so that definitely means that we will have enough poultry products in this year and for the upcoming year. Thank you. We had Serhiy Karpenko with us, a director of the Union of Poultry Breeders of Ukraine. We've been talking about the topic which is of concern to many Ukrainian families. We talked about egg and chicken prices. We will continue tomorrow. See you tomorrow.